Hey, what is up, everyone? Probably my most anticipated season of the year is coming up next week, and in this video, we're going over everything we know so far about season 14. So, we've got a lot of information so far about season 14, and enough that I feel like we can talk about everything that we have that we know about so far. But definitely keep an eye out on the channel because we'll have a ton of videos on here talking about all the different features more in depth. So the theme of this season is really like being sneaky and mischievous and all the different tools that come together to basically allow that to happen. So this season update is not going to be like last season where there's like one or two tentpole features. This is more similar to what we got with season 12 where it's like a collection of different items all together. So first we have like a new movement mechanic, which is kind of crazy that we haven't had anything like this added basically since the start of the game. But I feel like what they've done with this really justifies putting it in now. And this is crouching. So crouching is something that's kind of a simple mechanic if you think about it in terms of like other games like you play Fortnite or something else. You can crouch in those games, but in Sea of Thieves it's going to be used differently than we have in other games. The way they have crouching set up in this game is really so that it's like a separate type of mode. So like when you're moving around normally and stuff, you have access to like your weapons and everything like that. But then if you go into crouch mode, you have access to a whole new set of tools. But first off, the default thing that crouching does is it hides your nameplate and makes your player quieter when you're moving around. So those are two great things. In the past, when I've made tucking videos and stuff, and if you want, I don't know how relevant this tucking video is going to be after season 14 comes out. I might make an updated one in the future. But I have a tucking video basically talking about like one of the things that I do is don't put boots or any shoes on my characters because that makes your footsteps quieter. Whereas this, it might make it so that that's not even relevant anymore because if you crouch and move around, they might not hear you at all. Now I said earlier that crouching basically puts you into like a new mode essentially, with different options of what you can do. First you can go up to like ledges on your ship and you can basically jump overboard and like hang from there, which I think is really cool. Now my question is, I feel like you'll be very easily spotted doing that, so maybe it's like a temporary place that you want to hide. So like, for example, let's say you board a ship and then you hear them coming back and you're like, hear them coming up the ladder or something and you need just a place to hide real quick. So maybe you just go to the ledge and like hop overboard essentially and you're just kind of hanging there. But you probably wouldn't want to stay there for too long. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not as noticeable, but I feel like just everything I see and just kind of thinking about how this is going to play in the game, you'll probably be noticeable, and you can see the person's hands still there on the ledge. So if you're sailing around, keep an eye on the ledges to see if there's any hands kind of holding on. Now the biggest thing that I'm excited for with this season, and the other thing that you can access while crouching, is disguises. So in the past we've had stuff like the barrel hide emote, which were great at the time and were really fun, and basically allowed you to hide in different places and stuff, but it did have some limitations in being an emote. Disguises really takes that idea and fixes some of the issues with it and brings it to a whole new level essentially. So with disguises, you can disguise yourself as like the original barrel hide as well as different types of chest. So when you first start the game after next week's update, every player will have two disguises to start off with, the barrel hide emote and the basic sailor chest. And then you'll be able to complete combinations to unlock more. I think this is really cool. It kind of gives you a new way to progress. And I'm a little surprised that they actually did it because most of the idea with Sea of Thieves is that, you know, basically someone that's starting off day one is in the same exact place in terms of like what they're able to do as someone played for 500 hours or something. The game has always been like a cosmetic based progression, and this kind of is a cosmetic based progression right here, but it's also kind of a gameplay progression if you think about it, because if only 1% of the player base has a chest of legends disguise, then you're less likely to think that that's someone hiding there. Now, I'm assuming that the disguises probably work the same way that emotes did in the past, where if the player goes up to it and like attacks it or something, or you take damage, then it'll break the disguise and you'll be revealed. That would be, you know, a likely assumption based off what we've seen. One of the other big benefits that we see with disguises as opposed to the emotes that we had in the past is you basically can move around as your disguise. So you don't have to like break your disguise and then like re-hide it again. You can basically stand up and kind of crouch walk to wherever you need to go, which I think is pretty cool. So one of the other big problems that we have with the barrel hide emote currently that it looks like this is going to fix but it hasn't been confirmed yet is when you do the barrel hide emote, or basically NA emote in the game, if you're on your ship or another player's ship, your character will basically move like how your character normally would, but it doesn't move with the ship. So if you're hiding as a barrel, it basically was coming out of line with the rest of them. So you didn't really want to use the barrel hide emote too much on player ship, especially if you're in rocky water. If you're on land or something, it works pretty fine, but you can see in one of these clips where it shows them on the galleon, where it actually is staying pretty aligned with everything else. So that I'm also really excited for, because that's a huge fix and should make tucking and hiding and stuff a lot better and less likely to be exposed because of that. Next we have another one that's pretty interesting to see, and this is the new Merfruit. So this is a new type of fruit in the game, and it has a special ability, and it seems like you have to cook it in order for this ability to be unlocked. And it's kind of odd because none of the other fruit in the game you are supposed to cook, or else you'll burn it. So this one is kind of interesting. But anyways, basically the Merfruit has the ability to temporarily hide your mermaid away for a short time. So this means that if you're swimming up to a ship, so for example, let's say you're trying to swim up to a skeleton fort and there's a ship parked there and you're trying to swim up to it. You can basically, before you get to it, or close enough to it where they'd see a mermaid, you can use this Merfruit, and then you can basically have the mermaid hide, and you can go and board them. So next we have a new weapon that I was pretty excited for when we talked about it in the preview event, but it seems like it's been pulled back a bit from where it was before. So the blowpipe basically has 3 different darts that you can use, and it's maxed out to 4 each. So it technically has the most ammo out of any weapon we have in the game, but it might not be the best weapon to use in a lot of situations, which I think is designed on purpose. They don't want one weapon to overpower everything else. So what we know so far is that there's 3 types of darts for the blow dart, which is a little bit disappointing. I kind of was hoping that we'd get some more to go along with this, and maybe we'll get some more in the future. So the first dart we have is the black powder dart. This is basically like an explosive dart, and probably the thing you'll probably use most in PvP and just fighting in general. And basically what it does is it's a timed explosive. So when you shoot it at something, it'll basically have a fuse that goes off, and then it eventually will explode. It will do fire damage to any opponents nearby, so you can actually do a pretty decent amount of impact with this dart. So next up we have the poison dart. This dart does damage over time. You can stop the fuse for the black powder dart, or remove the poison effect from the poison dart just by going into the water or throwing a bucket of whatever liquid on yourself. Then finally we have the lure dart, which is essentially a way to basically bring all the AI enemies into one place. And the way that they showed it off in the trailer was pretty cool, where basically you could use this dart to shoot an enemy player, and then any skeletons or enemies that are around will basically come and attack that player instead of coming for you. Which I thought it was a pretty cool mechanic, and I'm interested to see how players use this in a lot of other ways. One area that I think this could be pretty useful in is when you have the Skull of Siren Song Voyage, where you have basically, once you get the skull, all the skeletons are chasing you and stuff. And let's say you're in a situation where other players are on the island too trying to chase you with it. You could potentially use the lure dart to shoot like one of your rival players, and then have all the skeletons that are spawning go attack them, and then you can go and sell the skull. So I think there's some cool situations you could do with it. I'm wondering how useful this will be, but yeah, that sounds interesting. One of the other things that was really interesting that they did with the lure dart, that I think is actually pretty cool, is that when you use it and you shoot it down like on the ground or something, it makes it look like treasure, and it has like the shining glint to it. So to other players, they might like be attracted to it. So you could basically do a situation where you shoot it down, and then you like get in your disguise, and then when the player comes up to look at it, you hop out of your disguise and attack them. So I thought that was a pretty interesting way to use it. The thing I'm disappointed by, and maybe it'll come in the future, but I don't see it from everything that we've been shown so far, is during the preview event, they mentioned something that'd be like a sound dart, essentially. So if you shot the dart on the capstan or something, it would basically make it sound like the anchor was going down. And I was really excited for that because I thought that would be really fun to use, and it doesn't seem like it's here for this update. So that's a bit disappointing to me. Hopefully we get some more darts in the future, because they have this new darts radial where you can basically choose all the different types of darts that you want. And there's only 3 here, but there's space for a lot more. So I'm hoping that maybe in future season updates or something, we'll get more unique darts to play with. So next we have one of the other big features that I'm really looking forward to, which is traps. So traps are a new type of throwable in the game, where basically when you throw it down, it kind of looks like a bear trap, And what you can do with it is you can just kind of throw it down, and then when someone walks over it will trigger. Now you can also enhance these traps with stuff like fireworks, other throwables like blunder bombs and fire bombs, or some of the cursed cannonballs. So you can really make this a devastating attack depending on how you enhance it. If you crouch, you're able to enhance these traps, or you can disarm them, which I think is pretty cool, and you're actually able to disarm other players' traps as well. So that's pretty nice that it's basically kind of universal. If you see the trap, you can be smart enough to kind of take it out beforehand. Another way of disarming the trap is basically just shooting it, and that's a way to kind of safely get rid of it. What makes this even cooler is that you can actually partially bury these traps so that it's harder for players to see. So you can make it so that you can basically like set up a trap, let's say at a skeleton fort, where maybe you put a trap right next to the vault door, so when they go and put the key in, it basically attacks them, and then you can go and, sneak up on them or something. So that's pretty awesome as well. So finally we have the harpoon gun. And I am interested to see how this is implemented, because what they talked about in the preview event before was a very powerful new tool with being able to traverse as well as being able to board and all sorts of stuff. Then they had the update video last week where they kind of were easing fears about it and basically admitting that they had significantly nerfed this weapon compared to what they showed off in the preview event, which is probably for the best if we're being honest. But I'm interested to see if this harpoon gun is going to be a very useful and loved tool, or if people are just going to not want to use it, because you have to remember it's taking up one of your 2 weapon slots. So it's taking up valuable space when you might want to save that for your cutlass or the blowpipe or anything else really in the game that can help you in PvP. This doesn't really seem like it's going to help you in PvP, and I'm interested to see how often players actually use it. I could see this being useful with boarding, but if you think about with the recent blunderbuss change, you can't really rock this with like a blunderbuss and then like board onto a galleon and then like take out the crew with your blunderbuss, because it's just not going to do enough damage with one shot. So very interesting things. We're definitely going to have to wait and kind of see how it pans out. They also showed off some pretty cool cosmetics that I'm looking forward to trying to unlock. And all around, I really think this is going to be a great season for us. Season 13, I think, started really getting things back on track for the game with consistent events and 2 really fun new things with the Burning Blade and the skeleton camps, which I know has some contention between players, whether or not they actually enjoy those updates or not. For me personally, I thought Season 13 was a really good season, and I think Season 14 looks like it's going to be even more fun. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think so far about everything we know about Season 14, and what are you most excited for? That's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed, it'd be great if you like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye y'all.